versus Trump margin. You look where we were a month ago, it was Harris by 3. Look at where we are today. It's Harris by 3. Simply put, this race hasn't moved. It has been continuously very, very tight. And one way you can get an understanding of that is I want to take you through history, all right? Campaigns where any candidate held a lead of at least 5 or more points in the polls. We're going to go all the way back since 1964. Most campaigns, at least one candidate has led by 5 points or more at least 3 weeks. In fact, all 15 of them from 1964 to 2020. If you look this year, there have been 0 days, count them 0 days, where either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump has been ahead by at least 5 points in the polls. In fact, you could go all the way back when Joe Biden was going to be the presumptive Democratic nominee, and even back then, no candidate led by at least 5 points in the polls. The bottom line is this is a historically close race, and it's a historically consistent race, Jessica, on states. All right, this is, again, your Harris versus Trump margin. And look at these Great Lake battleground states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Look, you see some blue on this side of the screen, right? These are a little bit more friendly to Kamala Harris than the Sun Belt that we'll get to in a second. But look at this. A 1-point advantage in Pennsylvania, 2 points in Michigan, 2 points in Wisconsin, all well within the margin of error, too close to call. You come over now to the Sun Belt battleground states, you got a little bit more red here. Trump up by a point in North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia. Nevada, Harris holding on to a 1-point advantage, but again, very, very tight. So what does this mean for the electoral map, all right? So let's take a look and say, okay, imagine if the polls match what end up being the results perfectly, right? That's probably not going to happen, but for the sake of this exercise, let's do it. What we see, of course, is Harris carrying, let's get some green font here, there we go, carrying all of these Great Lake battleground states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and then she also carries Nevada, but you see again Trump, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. Look at this. Kamala Harris gets to exactly 276 electoral votes, slightly more than the 270 she needs to win. Donald Trump right behind at 262. But the bottom line is, Jessica, at this hour, this race remains incredibly tight. We've done these segments over the last month. This battleground map, simply put, really hasn't changed. Maybe a slight advantage to Kamala Harris, but a race that remains way too close to call. What happens if we have a similar error across those key battleground states? Well, if that happens again, look at this. Donald Trump carries all of these Great Lake battleground states. He carries Nevada as well. Of course, he carries Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. And he gets, to get this, 312 electoral votes. So the bottom line is, if we have an error like we did 4 years ago, Donald Trump is going to win this election. Kamala Harris is going to lose. But here's the thing. Everyone always says, oh, the polls were off in 2020. They're going to be off this year. Not necessarily. Because what happens if the polls are off like they were in 2022, which, of course, was only 2 years ago, those midterm elections? Well, then we put all these Great Lake battleground states right back into Kamala Harris's column. She wins in the Southeast, in Georgia and North Carolina. She wins in Arizona, and she wins in Nevada. And then it's a Harris blowout, 319 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 219. So the bottom line is this. We are at this point right now where the race is so tight. But even though it's so tight, don't be surprised if either one of these candidates, come election night and the days to follow, when we're counting those votes, ends up running away with this. The bottom line is this. This race is too close to call. It really could go either way. And the margin of error in presidential election polling, when we have races this close, are much wider than I think folks think.